Welcome to my channel, and today I want to share a story that will take you on a roller coaster of betrayal, resilience, and ultimate triumph. It's about a woman who thought she had it all: a successful career, a seemingly perfect marriage, and a life built on love, only to have it ripped away in an instant. But this isn't just a story about heartbreak. It's about how she turned pain into power, built an empire of her own, and discovered that the best revenge isn't revenge at all. Stick around, because the twists in this story will keep you on the edge of your seat until the very end. I still remember the day Marcus Donovan threw the divorce papers at me like I was nothing. 3 years of marriage ended in the span of 30 seconds, and standing behind him was Naomi Adeyemi, smiling as if she had just won a prize. They wanted me gone, desperate, broken, humiliated. So I signed the papers. No tears, no pleading, no begging. What I did next? Let's just say karma works in ways most people don't see coming. But before we get there, let me take you back to the beginning, to the life I had built for myself before it all came crashing down. My name doesn't really matter anymore. Not the one I carried back then. What matters is who I became after everything fell apart. I used to believe in fairy tales and the kind of love that transforms you. I was a tech consultant, a brilliant one, really. Clients fought over my time, and I was building a reputation and a career that I thought would last a lifetime. Then, at a conference in Miami, I met Marcus. Tall, impeccably groomed, confident to the point of arrogance, and every word he spoke seemed to drip money. He ran a commercial real estate development company, the type that erected the glass towers you see dotting the skyline of every major city. When he pursued me, I felt like a chosen woman, the only one who could understand his vision and share in his dreams. We married within a year, swept up in a whirlwind that felt like destiny. Looking back, the red flags were there, waving like banners in a hurricane, but I didn't see them. Love, or the illusion of love, makes you blind to reason. His family tolerated me at best. His mother, Mrs. Lillian Donovan, would smile during family dinners, but her eyes were always cold, calculating, never truly welcoming. His father, Harold Donovan, barely acknowledged I existed. His friends, they treated me like an accessory, a trophy picked up and paraded around. And somewhere along the way, I began sacrificing pieces of myself without even realizing it. When Marcus decided to expand his business to the West Coast, I turned down a promotion that would have made me a senior director at my firm. I told myself it was temporary, that I could rebuild my career anywhere, that it was worth it to support him. We moved across the country, and I poured myself into creating a home for him, entertaining his business associates, playing the part of the perfect wife. Slowly, piece by piece, the woman who once commanded boardrooms became a hostess planning dinners and selecting curtains. The consultant who solved million-dollar problems was now solving the problem of which throw pillows matched the living room aesthetic. But I didn't complain. I loved him. Or at least I loved the man I thought he was. Late nights at the office became routine. The distance between us widened. We stopped talking, laughing, touching with any real intimacy. I told myself it was just a rough patch, that he was stressed, that I should be patient. I told myself a lot of lies to make the truth easier to swallow. Then came that Tuesday afternoon that changed everything. I had finished an early virtual consultation and decided to surprise Marcus at home. We hadn't had lunch together in months, and I thought maybe a spontaneous gesture could spark a little warmth. I arrived at our home, the place where I had invested so much of myself, and heard laughter from upstairs. Light, carefree laughter that didn't belong to me. His laughter, warm and genuine, the way it hadn't sounded in over a year. I froze at the bottom of the stairs, caught between the instinct to retreat and the pull of curiosity. My feet carried me forward. Each step felt like walking toward my own destruction. When I opened our bedroom door, there they were. Marcus, with that expression I'll never forget. Not guilt, not remorse, just irritation, as if I were interrupting an important business deal. Naomi was draped in one of my robes, smiling, as if she owned my home, my life, my everything. I realized then that this wasn't just an affair. It was a planned takeover. "We need to talk," Marcus said. His tone made the moment sound trivial, like discussing weekend plans instead of the end of a marriage. I just stood there, numb, watching him get dressed while she sat on my bed like she had always belonged there. I didn't cry, I didn't scream. I just felt an emptiness, a recognition that my life as I knew it had vanished. Downstairs, she followed wearing the audacity of my own silk robe. He poured himself a drink, didn't offer me one, and began speaking with the same detached, analytical tone he used to discuss quarterly earnings. They had been together for 6 months. Naomi was the daughter of his largest investor, a wealthy East Coast family. This wasn't about love, it was strategy. I was the obstacle. This was never real love, he said, his eyes piercing. You were convenient at the time, but I've outgrown what you can offer me. Those words should have shattered me. Maybe they would have if I hadn't already been hollowed by years of compromise. Naomi, perched on my couch, actually said, I hope we can all be mature about this. Mature, as in sleeping with someone else's husband while expecting civility. Marcus slid divorce papers across the coffee table, already signed by his lawyers, already calculated to leave me with nothing. The house, the cars, our joint investments, even the furniture I had handpicked, all his. I had only my personal belongings and my car. 3 years of life together, gone in 30 seconds. Here's what they didn't know. While I had been playing the beautiful, accommodating wife, I'd also been building something of my own. 2 years into the marriage, I had returned to coding, a passion I had shelved for consulting. Late nights, when Marcus was supposedly at the office, I worked on an app, a platform connecting minority women entrepreneurs with investors committed to diversity. I built it quietly, independently, separate from his world, with its own accounts and identity. 6 months before the divorce, my app went viral. Investors came knocking. A major acquisition offer arrived, and I accepted. Marcus had no idea. While he thought I was dependent, I was already worth more than him. So when I picked up those papers, I did not falter. I signed, fast and clean. They expected desperation, instead they received calm decisiveness. I saw Marcus clearly for the first time in months, a small man compensating for his insecurities by taking from others. I gathered my things and left, taking only what mattered: my clothes, my laptop, my grandmother's jewelry, and my dignity. Everything else, the expensive home, the furniture, the facade, meant nothing. 3 months passed. I didn't check on him. I didn't inquire through friends. I focused on my app, now growing, thriving, helping thousands of women. And then the dominoes began to fall. Marcus's investor father pulled out all his funds, millions gone overnight. Clients quietly defected. A federal investigation exposed shady practices in his business empire. Naomi vanished as quickly as she had appeared, her strategic marriage collapsing with his fortunes. My phone rang occasionally, his number, but I never answered. 6 months later, we crossed paths at a coffee shop. He was older, exhausted, defeated. Bankruptcy, lost prestige, friends vanished. He asked if I had orchestrated it all. I smiled calmly. No, I said. I just bet on myself instead of you. Everything he had lost, he had built for himself, through choices, greed, and hubris. I walked away, lighter than I had been in years, free from needing his approval, free to be myself fully. Today, my company has helped over 50,000 women launch businesses. I speak at conferences, I'm featured in publications, and I've built something real, something lasting. He's irrelevant. His betrayal was the catalyst for my freedom. The best revenge, I realized, is not revenge at all. It's becoming fully yourself, so powerful in your purpose that those who wronged you fade into the background. I lost everything to gain what mattered most, myself. After walking out of that coffee shop, I didn't look back. But the weeks that followed gave me time to reflect on everything I had endured. I thought about the version of myself that I had left behind, the woman who believed in fairy tales, who bent herself into someone else's expectations, who sacrificed her ambitions for a man who never truly valued her. I remembered my early days as a tech consultant, the thrill of solving complex problems and the satisfaction of building solutions from scratch. The corporate world had been mine, and yet I had given it up so casually, thinking love demanded it. But love, as I discovered, was never mutual in my marriage. It was a transaction, a performance, and I had been cast in the role without realizing it. I decided I would never let that happen again. I threw myself fully into my app, expanding its reach beyond what I had originally imagined. What started as a simple platform connecting minority women entrepreneurs to investors who valued diversity grew into an ecosystem of mentorship, funding opportunities, and networking events. I hired a small team, smart, passionate women who believed in the mission. We held weekly virtual workshops, brought in high-profile speakers, and featured success stories on our growing social media channels. The world began to notice, and soon, my app was being talked about in tech magazines, podcasts, and online forums. It wasn't just a business, it was a movement, one that I had built in secret while Marcus and Naomi played their games. Meanwhile, the news of Marcus's downfall spread like wildfire. His company, once celebrated as a rising star in commercial real estate, began crumbling. Investors pulled out, clients left, and the media painted a picture of greed and mismanagement. I heard stories through mutual acquaintances, the lavish office renovations left unpaid, contractors demanding settlements, employees leaving in frustration. All the things Marcus had thought were hidden, all the shortcuts he had taken, were coming to light. And Naomi? She had vanished as soon as the money stopped flowing. Strategic marriages, I realized, only work when the strategy benefits the planner. When it no longer did, she was gone without a second thought. During this period, I began traveling for my work, speaking at conferences, meeting entrepreneurs, and mentoring women with ideas, but no access to the networks that could make their visions real. I met women like Chinyere Okafor, a young Nigerian innovator creating sustainable fashion from recycled materials, and Amina Diallo, who was building solar-powered solutions for villages in West Africa. Their stories reminded me of why I had built the platform in the first place and fueled a fire within me I hadn't felt in years. Unlike my marriage, my work gave me genuine connection, collaboration, and respect. I was no longer shrinking to fit someone else's world. I was expanding into my own. Then came the day when the full extent of Marcus's collapse reached my ears. His biggest investor, Naomi's father, had publicly withdrawn all his capital from Marcus's ventures. The reasoning, according to industry insiders, was ethical concerns and instability. What they didn't know was that the withdrawal was inspired by interactions with women my app had helped. They had met entrepreneurs who exposed questionable practices Marcus had hidden, and it turned the tide. Suddenly, he wasn't the golden boy of real estate anymore. He was a cautionary tale. Clients began switching to competitors. One by one, they cited reliability and ethical concerns. A federal investigation was launched into some of Marcus's business dealings. It wasn't criminal, but the publicity alone was devastating. Board meetings turned into blame games, partners abandoned projects midstream, and Naomi's sudden disappearance left him isolated. Marcus, once untouchable, became a man scrambling to survive. I had no intention of personally seeking revenge. Yet, watching events unfold had a quiet satisfaction. It wasn't cruelty. It was the natural consequence of his choices. I had never needed to orchestrate a downfall. I had simply built a life that was independent, purposeful, and meaningful. And the contrast to the chaos he had created could not have been more stark. While he had relied on manipulation, I had relied on skill, intelligence, and resilience. 6 months after the divorce, fate, or perhaps the universe's dark sense of humor, placed Marcus directly in my path at a coffee shop. He looked older, more worn, and defeated in a way that no power suit could disguise. His usual confidence had evaporated. The arrogant swagger was gone, replaced by careful, hesitant movements, almost as if he were testing the ground before speaking. He approached cautiously, asking if we could talk. My instinct was to walk away, but curiosity and a desire to fully close this chapter made me stay. Sitting across from him, I saw a man who had built his life on control, now stripped of it. He confessed the collapse of his company, how clients abandoned him, how bankruptcy loomed, and how Naomi had left the moment she realized his wealth was no longer secure. Then came the inevitable question, did I orchestrate it all? Had I planned his downfall as revenge for the humiliation he had caused me? I could have lied, could have let him believe I was a mastermind who had plotted his ruin, but the truth was simpler and far more powerful. No, I said. I didn't plan this. I just bet on myself instead of you. Everything that happened to you, you did to yourself. I stopped being collateral damage in your life. He sat there, stunned, realizing perhaps too late that the person he had underestimated had been quietly building something incredible while he was busy destroying mine. There was a pause, and then he muttered, almost regretfully, "You were the strategist behind everything that worked in my business. I didn't realize it until you were gone." But recognition meant nothing now. Too little. Too late. I finished my coffee, stood up, and walked away, leaving him with the consequences of his choices. I felt lighter than I had in years, not because of his suffering, but because I was free. Free from needing his approval. Free from the prison of a marriage that had demanded I shrink myself. Free to be fully me. In the months that followed, my company continued to grow. We helped over 50,000 women entrepreneurs launch businesses, connected them to mentors and investors, and created a global community where ideas could thrive regardless of background. I spoke at conferences, appeared in major publications, and watched countless women gain the opportunities they deserved. I slept well, not in luxury, but in peace, knowing that I had built something real. Occasionally, people asked if I was angry or held hatred for Marcus. I wasn't. He was a chapter in my story, not the entire book. His betrayal was not the end of my life. It was the beginning of the one I was always meant to live. It was the catalyst for reclaiming myself, for transforming pain into purpose. I had stopped performing for someone else and started living fully for me. The best revenge, I realized, is not revenge at all. It is becoming so fully yourself, so fully realized in your purpose, that those who hurt you become irrelevant. It is building something so meaningful that their opinions, their validation, and even their presence no longer matter. Marcus wanted to break me, but in trying to do so, he freed me to discover that I never needed anything from him to begin with. Not his money, his name, or his world. I had everything I needed inside myself, waiting to be claimed. I only had to lose everything else to find it. Looking back now, I realized that losing Marcus and everything I thought I needed was the most liberating thing that ever happened to me. But in those early days after the divorce, freedom felt strange, like stepping out into sunlight after years in a dark room. I remember sitting in my small apartment, a space I had chosen for its simplicity and functionality, staring at my laptop screen late at night. My fingers moved automatically across the keyboard, adding new features to the app that had once been a secret passion project. With every line of code, I reclaimed a piece of myself that I hadn't realized I had lost. Before Marcus, I had been fiercely ambitious. I had grown up watching my mother, Ifeoma Adeyemi, juggle multiple jobs and still find time to mentor young women in our community. She instilled in me the belief that independence and intelligence were more valuable than wealth or status. But love, in its deceptive form, had lulled me into thinking that security meant being someone else's support system instead of my own. My marriage to Marcus had felt like a fairy tale at first, but fairy tales rarely account for the subtle erosion of identity. I thought of the early moments of our courtship, how his confidence and charm had swept me off my feet. The way he spoke about his skyscraper projects, about his vision for transforming urban spaces, had seemed visionary. I had been captivated, believing I was witnessing greatness. But behind the confidence, behind the charm, was someone who measured love in utility and loyalty in convenience. He needed someone to admire him, to support him, to make his life appear perfect to the world. And for a while, I had been that person, willingly, blindly. The irony was that while I had been shrinking to fit his world, I had been secretly cultivating my own empire. Late nights coding, connecting with women in tech, developing the platform. I had built a network, a reputation, a source of empowerment for thousands. I realized that the sacrifices I thought had been wasted were actually investments in my independence. Each time I delayed my career for him, I learned patience. Each time I smoothed over social expectations, I learned strategy. Each time I endured neglect, I built resilience. The skills I had honed, unknowingly, were the same ones that propelled me to succeed once I focused on myself. As my company gained traction, I met extraordinary women who inspired me. There was Aisha Bello, who had transformed her family's failing textile business into a sustainable brand with the help of mentorship I facilitated. There was Fatima Kamara, whose renewable energy startup flourished after securing funding through my platform. Each success story reminded me that the world was bigger than my pain, bigger than Marcus, and bigger than the betrayal that had once consumed me. These women didn't care about wealth or status. They cared about purpose, skill, and integrity. One evening, as I prepared for a keynote speech at an international women's entrepreneurship conference, I paused to reflect. I realized that my journey had come full circle. The young woman who once walked into boardrooms, full of ambition and drive, had been buried under layers of compromise. But now she stood taller, not just in stature, but in spirit, stronger for having endured the loss and betrayal. I was no longer playing a role, I was fully myself. Marcus, meanwhile, had become a cautionary tale in the industry. Once celebrated for his acumen and charm, he was now a story whispered about in boardrooms, a lesson in hubris and short-sightedness. Investors remained wary, contracts were hard to secure, and the media painted him as a man undone by his own arrogance. Naomi had vanished completely, her strategic ambitions crumbling as quickly as they had appeared. And yet, I felt no schadenfreude, no joy in watching their downfall. It wasn't necessary. Their misfortune was a natural consequence of choices they had made. My satisfaction came from knowing that I had survived, grown, and thrived despite their betrayal. Months later, during an interview with a major tech magazine, I reflected on what I had learned. The best revenge, I told the reporter, is not revenge. It's creating a life that reflects your true self, one so fulfilling that those who wronged you are irrelevant. Success, purpose, and peace are stronger than any act of retaliation. This became my mantra, my guiding principle. I realized that the pain Marcus had caused me, while intense, had been the catalyst for discovering my own strength, independence, and capacity to create meaningful change. Even now, years later, when I see Marcus' name in passing, usually in a news article or through the grapevine, I feel nothing but calm detachment. He is a reminder of a chapter in my life that shaped me, not defined me. I don't resent him. I don't seek vengeance. I simply continue to build, to mentor, and to grow, knowing that my worth was never tied to someone else's validation. Walking through the bustling offices of my company, hearing the chatter of young entrepreneurs sharing ideas, witnessing women close funding rounds for their first startups, I understand the real power of independence. My success is not just financial, it is personal, emotional, and ethical. I'm a living testament to the fact that being underestimated, dismissed, or betrayed can fuel transformation, provided you bet on yourself instead of others. Sometimes people ask if I ever feel sadness about losing Marcus, about the marriage I thought would last forever. And yes, there was grief. But grief faded, replaced by clarity. I learned that the world doesn't owe you recognition, fairness, or validation. It owes you nothing. What matters is how you respond when stripped of what you thought defined you. I responded by reclaiming my purpose, my identity, and my life. The moral of my story is simple. The best revenge is your own success, not measured in wealth alone, but in authenticity, fulfillment, and the lives you touch. I no longer measure myself against the people who wronged me. I measure myself against my potential, my impact, and my joy. By focusing inward and upward, I discovered freedom I had never imagined. A life richer than the one I lost, and a peace that no betrayal can take away. Walking home one evening after a long day of meetings and mentorship sessions, I paused to watch the sunset. The sky was painted in shades of amber and gold, a reminder that endings can also be beginnings. I realized then that Marcus, Naomi, and everything I had lost were never obstacles. They were catalysts. Losing the marriage, the status, and the security allowed me to find the woman I was always meant to be. Resilient, purposeful, and unapologetically powerful. I had nothing to prove to them, nothing to reclaim from the past. Every success, every milestone, every woman empowered through my platform is a testament to my strength and vision. Marcus tried to break me, but in reality, he freed me to become fully myself. And that, more than anything, is the story I want the world to know. Losing everything isn't the end. It can be the beginning of the life you were always meant to live. Thank you for staying with me until the end of this story. If it resonated with you, remember that your worth is never defined by someone else's actions or opinions. Sometimes losing everything is exactly what you need to find your true strength and purpose. If you've ever been underestimated or betrayed, let this story be a reminder. Bet on yourself, invest in your dreams, and keep moving forward. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you won't miss more stories about resilience, empowerment, and women turning challenges into triumphs. And I'd love to hear from you. Drop a heart and comment below sharing a time you proved someone wrong or turned a setback into a victory.